Hey everybody, this is Clutch, and it's time to get real with Scott SirScoots Smith, presented to you and sponsored by Bic Flexible Razors. Thank you very much, Scoots, for joining me on the couch here. Have some really in-depth questions we'd like to ask you. First off, can you please define what is Evil Geniuses and what is your role with the team?
Well, Evil Geniuses is a professional video game team. We're a multi-genre gaming team, so we have several different divisions. StarCraft is one of them. Some of the fighting games is another. So we have our StarCraft players here and Justin Wong doing some fighting games. I am COO of the company.
It's a very big title. What has been your personal experience with eSports?
Oh, boy. How much time do you got? 1999, Counter-Strike comes out, and I realized that being a video game player all my life, Ataris and everything, that there's this world where people aren't slaying dragons, they're not trying to finish levels, they're playing each other. And they're really good at it. And it just hooked me. I'm a team-based kind of guy. I'm an FPS kind of guy, and fell in love with Counter-Strike and watched that blow up into an esport and continued from there.
How would you define the core values of Evil Geniuses, and how do they translate to your players?
We don't necessarily have a written mission statement or a credo on our wall. I think all the management of EG lives by the motto to do the absolute best by our players than we can, and everything else falls in line after that. If you take care of the business, which is the players, everything else again kind of lines up. And so we're very player first, very player first.
Now, esports is a growing phenomenon. A lot of success has happened over the years. But do you feel there are any current challenges that esports faces? And if so, what can we do as a community to overcome them?
Well, I think we're always going to have that little bit of a stigma that, we're kind of the nerds in the basement, whether it's console guys or PC guys. And I think that is slowly, with the business of gaming eclipsing the movie business and the music business, I think the real world is seeing that we're not a niche. We are a huge cultural thing that is part of the world globally, not just in any particular country. I think the one thing that a lot of us talk about that have talk shows and stuff is there's a lot of hate if you don't like the game, and I'm a very much believer that this is a sport. And the sport we're watching today is several different ones. You could be a Halo fan, you could be a StarCraft fan, or a Soul Calibur fan. Baseball, basketball, football. So I don't like all sports, but I don't dog the sport. I just don't watch them. I don't pay attention. And I think we get a lot of, oh, that game's terrible. That's not a competitive title. That's the competitive title. If there's a skill ceiling of them and everybody else, and they can make money and get sponsored and travel the world doing it, it's a pro game. Whether you like it or not, so to speak. So I think a little bit more like love amongst the game haters.
You mentioned shows. You are a co-host on the show Live on 3. How vital do you feel that independently generated content or commentary is to the esports scene?
I think it's essential. I mean, it's not just a little thing that needs to happen. It needs to be a very focal point. And I think you've heard a lot of us say, go to the ESFIs, go to the Team Liquids, these other sites. And it's great that the big ones are now paying attention. Obviously, GameSpot is here in a big way. That's great. But you need your community to cover your community, too. And that is already happening with shows, podcasts. I mean, you can, any hour of the day, whatever game you like, probably watch someone streaming it, watch someone talking about it, watch replays, demos. And that's what fuels this. It goes past just that second of time where it's live. You can go watch VODs, you can catch up, you can learn stuff. And the grassroots content creators are what make that.
We're seeing a lot of venues open up, especially bar crafts, how huge those have been going. So a big shout out to all you bar crafts out there. And when it comes to esports itself, a lot of people want to get involved. So let's say somebody comes up to you and says, SirScoots, I'd love to be involved with esports, be it a pro player, be it a caster, be it a graphic designer. What would you say to them?
I would say figure out what you're good at, what you think your skill set is. Honestly, just like real sports, the hardest thing to do in this business is sit in these booths. So that is like the hardest dream to achieve, right? But there's a whole lot of businesses around it, like things like MLG, things like EG, the websites, the content creators. So figure out what you're good at. If you are good at video editing, start knocking on doors and go, hey, can I make some highlight reels for you? If you're a writer, same kind of thing. There's all sorts of websites that are, written based. A lot of our writers start that way as volunteers. Hey, can I write some stuff for you? Sure. And then, they move on to different places. So figure out what you're good at and what you want to do. One thing you're not going to do is walk in with a fancy resume and land a $150,000 job. So it has to be passion fueled. You have to be willing to put in long hours for little financial reward and help us grow this. So, I mean, we are in a huge startup mode, right? And so you kind of need the volunteers.
Well, the passion is definitely there. We can hear it from the crowds at every event in every city we go to. I'm sure Columbus is having a great time so far. SirScoots, what has been your favorite moment at an MLG event?
We talked about this backstage. I have two. And some people in the room probably aren't going to like it. The first one. I used to work for MLG and Got Frag. And we were in charge of the World of Warcraft stream, which was their very first PC circuit stream. And whether you like World of Warcraft or not, huge fan base that watches the streams, much like League of Legends now, huge player base, so huge watching base. And our first event, we kind of destroyed everybody else's streams. So that was kind of a little feather in our PC cap. It was very much the house that Halo built at that point. So that was kind of neat. And definitely the second one outside of working for MLG would be MLG Orlando. Oh, he's not there. When Chris won, that made us feel that all the angst we went through with the recruitment really paid off for us. And you always want a player to win, but like that was so over the top for him and for us that it's just a magic moment. And maybe we repeat it tomorrow night somewhere. Maybe.
Well, thank you so much, Scoots. It was a pleasure to interview you. Well, speaking of Huck, he's coming up next against Hart. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more StarCraft 2 action.